Chapter 21. When I was learning how to read, I would sit next to Sean on the floor and read aloud to him. He would constantly roll his eyes and critique my reading skills, even though he had just started reading a year prior himself. He was still my big brother, therefore smarter and far superior. "You were going so fast, Kat. It's like you were barfing all the words out," Sean said in typical boy manner. "You make me nervous." A child is always honest. "Start at the beginning," he instructed. We seem to be way too serious for children of our age, but when you literally raise yourself, you tend to grow up super fast. Lack of parental supervision either has you surviving in one of two ways. You either act out and get into trouble to get any form of attention, or you learn that you are on your own and you need to take care of yourself. Sean and I took the latter approach to life. It was always survival mode until we could flee this place called home. I fumbled my way through Are You My Mother as Sean listened with his eyes closed. I made a conscious effort to slow down my pace. I articulated each word with such preciseness in order to make my big brother proud of me. Sean was extremely well read when I was just starting to read, and I wanted to be just like him. If I were just like him, maybe he would like me and want to be my friend. "Good job, Kat," he said, standing up as I finished. "Where are you going?" I asked him. "I'm going to go ride bikes with my friends." And with that, he was gone, leaving me alone. Such short-lived moments we had. By the second week of April, I was finally finished with the book. Alas, no title. I was excited to have the book all done. It was the end of a great, enormous struggle, and I was ready to share it. The only person I wanted to share it with was my brother. It had been a month since our accident. It had been a month since I had tasted heaven in Finley's arms. I needed some happy. I needed to free myself from this dark and desolate place that was wrapped around my head. I needed to be brave. I went downstairs to find Alan. He was at the dining room table, working on the books for the business. "I am ready to see Sean now," I announced, before he even lifted his head from his writing. He looked at me, pulled off his reading glasses, and found a clean, freshly dressed, healthy-looking Kat making her intentions known. I stood tall as if projecting a great deal of confidence, when in reality I was shaking at a cellular level, scared to venture into that house of horrors, the house of blood, beeping IV machines, needles, putrid smells, death even. It was time for me to go, though. Mother and Cecily had been staying with him constantly throughout, and they deserved a break, at least for a day. Poor Cecily had been bouncing back and forth between Sean and her father, who had since been admitted waiting to take his last breath. It must have been agony for Cecily, trying to make a decision of who to sit with, Sean or her father. Izzy had offered up her home and caretaking skills to Cecily's little sister. Cecily need not worry about her as Izzy drove her back and forth from school, helped her with homework, kept her fed, and made sure she was at the hospital daily to sit with her father. This would be a hard year for her sister, but Izzy's care and guidance made it a reality that she would indeed graduate high school within mere months despite being in the process of losing her only parent. "As long as you are sure," Alan said to me as he began to rise from his seat. "Positive," I said. I was already completely prepared to go. Lightweight coat, purse, and manuscript in hand. "Let's head on over then," Alan said as he reached for his own jacket and headed to the van. The past month had definitely beaten poor Alan's spirit. He still smiled a radiant smile, but not as often as he used to. You could feel the heaviness in the air, and Alan seemed defeated, yet still as loving as ever. I was grateful for silence on the way to the hospital. I dozed a little as the trees and hills sped past me, losing them far behind. It was as if they were running away from us, running from the tragic existence that had become our lives. Sometimes I wished I could run away from all this. Lucky trees. We arrived and I had completely forgotten the exterior of the building. I guess being in that much shock and still reeling from the accident still struck me with temporary amnesia. Even when I got my stitches removed, I avoided taking in my surroundings. It was like I was visiting the place for the first time. My body knew exactly where we were, though. No repressed memory could outwit my body. My heart pounded as I got out of the van and made what seemed like the longest hike to the front entrance. As the sliding glass doors parted to admit me, my hands began to tingle and sweat pooled at my palms. Alan checked us in at the front desk. He handed me a visitor's tag. Beads of sweat were now forming at my temples. I noticed my hand was shaking as I pinned the tag onto my shirt. "Are you sure you are ready?" he asked, noticing a change in my appearance. "Yes, I have to do this," I muttered softly under my breath. He turned and continued toward the elevator. As the doors opened and we filed in, I began to feel disoriented and lightheaded. This was turning into a full-blown panic attack. I took several deep breaths as I gripped the back railing of the elevator. "You can do this, Kat. You need to do this, Kat. This is part of your story, Kat." I slowly stood up straighter. I wanted to exude such confidence when I saw Mother. I wanted everyone to know that Kat was healing. Every day I had made such fast improvements. Even if all I could muster was getting out of the bed and nourishing my body, I was getting there, and I had managed to finish my book. That was a miracle in itself. The doors opened at the second floor, and I stepped out of the elevator behind Alan. This I remembered. I held my head up and put one foot in front of the other until I found myself at the very same doorway where I had broken down a month earlier. Now I was prepared. I knew he was unresponsive. I knew he was badly injured. I knew he was clinging to life. No one had told me to what extent, though. I didn't want to hear it anyway. He looked much better than the last time I saw him. Even though he still could not breathe on his own, his face was free from stitches, and the bruising was fading. He seemed to have some color. That was good, right? Mother was talking to the nurse, a sad, defeated look on her face. She noticed me and gave me a sad smile. Cecily came over to me. "Are you feeling okay, Kat?" She hugged me awkwardly. "Yes, I needed to come see him today," I told her as I took her into my arms. "Maybe you are the one to wake him up. He has probably been waiting for you." She smiled sadly as she pulled away. "Well, I am here to give everybody the rest of the day off. You should spend some time with your father and then go to Izzy's for the night. This hospital is not the best place to sleep in." I smiled at her. She was grateful. The month had been so taxing on her. Although she had no idea before the accident, she had been just mere hours away from being an engaged woman and planning the wedding of her dreams. Now she was in the hospital, where both her father and the love of her life were teeter-tottering between life and death. The balancing act must have been maddening for her. "You know what I regret the most?" she asked as she absent-mindedly twirled the diamond heart pendant I had purchased that was now dangling from her neck. "What?" I I asked, somehow already knowing the answer. I regret running from his arms for so long. He is such a good man, and I never thought I deserved someone like him, she revealed. Oh, but you do, I said to her gently, and when he wakes up, you will be able to make up for all the lost time. She sadly sighed, seemingly on the verge of tears as Mother approached us. Hello, my beautiful cat. It is like seeing the sunshine for the first time in a month now that you are here. She hugged me. Hello, Mother. I am here to relieve you today and tonight, I said, melting into her arms. All hugs made me so long for Finley's strong arms that had felt so much like a shelter from the wildest storm. There wasn't a moment that went by that I did not wonder where he was and what he was doing. I will take you up on that offer, but I will be back first thing in the morning, she said. Just try to get some good rest, I told her. There were no exchanges of goodbyes, just weary, grateful souls exiting the room. The nurse lingered for a little bit to make sure everything was in place and functioning for Sean. Then she left, the door closing behind her. I walked over and gave Sean a kiss on his battered yet healing cheek. Hey, big brother. I have scars too. We match now, I chuckled as I assumed my place on the recliner. I'm sorry it took so long for me to come back to visit. So much has happened in just 1 month. I stared at the floor sadly. Wow, I have a story to read to you. This time you can't leave to go ride bikes with the neighbor kids. I finally have your full attention. I have finally finished this. This is everything that's happened up until now and how it is supposed to happen in the end. Well, how I want it to turn out anyway, I said softly. I pulled out my manuscript that was housed in a 3-ring binder. I had driven Alan up the wall, printing out over 300 pages. Every time I would finish a chapter, I would print it out. Sometimes I would be in the basement, retrieving copies several times a day at all hours. Editing felt so much easier that way, and I did not want to lug my laptop to the hospital. I always knew that when I was done with the book, Sean would be the first one to read it. Well, he was the first one to hear it now. I spent the entire day reading to Sean, pausing now and then to explain why I chose to write certain things the way that I did, brushing over the one sex scene in the book, explaining to him that was the only part of the book he could not read entirely, because, ew. Every now and then, the nurses would come in and change the IV bags, make sure his feeding tube was still nourishing him, and ask me if I needed anything. I was hungry, but did not want them to go out of their way to bring me anything, nor did I want to stop and head down to the cafeteria. I did not even want water. I just wanted to read to my brother. A doctor came in twice to check his progress and write it down in his chart. With all the interruptions, which I completely understood, and my pauses to rest my voice, it was well after 10 in the evening when I was finished. I was exhausted. I was starving. I was dehydrated. It had been over 24 hours since I had put anything in my body. I sat there for a while when I had finished my story, resting my voice. A nurse came in at about 11 and made sure we were both settled. She gave me clean blankets for the cot and bid us both good night. Another sleepover with my brother. This was going to be fun. She turned out the light for me as I made my way over to the cot and adjusted the blankets. She shut the door. I must have gotten up too fast as the blood completely left my head. I swayed back and forth before collapsing on the floor next to the cot. No one heard me. Well, one person did. "Way to go, Kat. Always gotta steal my thunder," came the obnoxious teasing. "Are you kidding me? I just wanted to read you my story. I was quite proud of it." I stood up and made sure I had not given myself another concussion. "Well, I did like it. I happen to like it a lot." "It is going to be a bestseller," he stated. "We should probably turn on the light. I need to make sure I'm not bleeding," I mentioned, trying to find my way through the dark. "You aren't," he said. "Where are you?" I asked, groping through the darkness. "In the bed, you idiot," he laughed. Wait a minute. It was all piecing together as I finally got my wits about me. I must have hit my head harder than I thought. "Sean?" I called out, suddenly extremely scared. "Yes, Kat?" he said impatiently. "Oh my God. Oh shit." I started to cry. "What the hell is wrong now?" he asked, his voice getting closer. "You're dead," I sobbed. Suddenly, we were back in the mountains where I met Finley. "Oh my God, I'm dead too," I wailed. I collapsed on the cold ground and just cursed the sky. "Would you shut up? What happened to you this past month? When did you become so scared of everything? Where's your faith and trust in everything turning out the way it is supposed to?" I let out a dramatic gasp as he appeared next to me and squatted down. He was dressed in his typical jeans and t-shirt, topped with black hoodie and watch cap beanie. "Where's your hospital gown?" I choked out. "Do you think I am going to parade around here with my ass hanging out?" he said, getting frustrated. "Guess not," I muttered. "Look, we don't have much time here. I figured you would have come much earlier," he told me. "I needed that time to get better in my own head and write the book," I said. "Everything was kind of in the balance until the book was done," he informed. I must have looked extremely guilty. "No pressure, though. Everything was meant to be this way," he added. "So what is happening now?" I asked him. "I made a promise to you that I needed to keep. I told you it did not matter what state I was in. I would help you with your soulmate." He looked around expectantly. "And what state are you in right now?" I asked him. "A coma. But I am joining you in this out-of-body experience. I figured you were the expert by now." He raised an eyebrow at me, teasing. I slowly let go of all my breath in a giant sigh of relief. "Yes, of course. Why am I so stupid?" "When are you going to wake up, Sean?" I asked him helplessly. "I can't tell you that now. First, we have to work out this business right here." He motioned to the figure walking toward us in the distance. It was me. "We are going to view this encounter from a different angle. You have lived it all through your own eyes. Let's view it through his. This is Finley's story." He stood up and I joined him. I knew that we were invisible to the characters playing out their part, so I looked on in silence. What followed began as a beautiful love story and ended in tragic heartbreak.